Hey, how you doing? It's another in the series, part three. I could start a playlist on this, I suppose, of how I made it. And this particular project is this is an island top made out of maple, solid maple. It was over 2 inches thick. Uh, it's a, I tell the story, so I don't have to get into it too much here. But it was a thing where I had to buy the material out here in LA, make the parts. I bought a van as my first Astro van. I kind of tell that story. I'll mention here because I didn't get too into it there. I bought the van. I always knew what Astro vans were. My uncle bought one in '85 when they first came out. But I was never sure if you could put a 4x8 sheet of plywood on the floor in one of those. So I went and looked at one, and you could. I bought it used for like $4,500. It was a 2005 third gen cargo van, two-wheel drive. And so, what I don't mention in the video, but I'll mention it here, is when I was on the road driving there and back, I got an Instagram. I'd never looked up Astrovan on Instagram before. And as I did that, I started seeing them with big tires and lifted and out in the woods. I was like, holy crap, that I didn't know they made an all-wheel drive Astrovan and that you could 4 buy it. And I was like, that's more of my lifestyle. Darn it, I wish I would have known. That's what I would have looked for. And come to find out, or the way things worked out, is like a couple months later, the van got stolen. And I was able to get the Astro van I wanted, which was the all-wheel drive, which I converted, and you guys know what that is. So that was the thing. This I mentioned in the video a little bit. This was a very stressful project. The homeowners were stressed, and the husband, my friend Alex, he didn't deal well with it, and he took a lot of that out on me at different times, and I didn't need to be dealing with it. And I did not charge enough money for this. There was things thrown at me. There was a lot of weird stuff that went on psychologically that did not need to be part of the project, but whatever. It was, and as I mentioned in the project, there was a couple changes that happened that I had to deal with on the fly that I wasn't really prepared for, but everything worked out fine. And in the end, I mean, I really only charged about half of what I should have. And it got so miserable at the end that I just walked away at the end. So that's on me. But it's not really on me. I shouldn't have been put in that position, but that's how it worked out. I'm over it. Everything's fine now. I love these people. What I love about this project the most is they love it, and it is the center point of their home. When you walk in the door, that's the first thing you see, and that's what everybody gathers around when they're cooking and hanging out. And this time of year, it's Christmas time. There's going to be pictures of them during the holidays, and this is going to be there. And they love it, and I love that they love it. And that's my favorite thing. My favorite thing is to make people happy. So I love to create something that's just unique. Again, the only one like it on the planet that is going to be around forever, man. As long as that house is around, that thing's going to be there. And that's amazing. And generations of people are going to be able to enjoy it. And that's what's wonderful. And that's the thing. I don't say this enough, and we're all different. And at different points in our lives, we get to certain levels. And one of the ways to reward yourself as an adult and admit to everybody else and tell the rest of the world that you're an adult is you find a guy like me to make you a custom piece of furniture. That's just a cool thing to do. That's just the way it is. And I like being that guy to make people feel good about themselves. Some people buy cars, buy a boat, whatever. It's different for everybody. And it's nice for them that people like myself, I'm not the only guy out there. I don't think I'm the best there is. I'm humbled all the time. Again, this is not I'm not telling you to do things the way I'm doing them. I'm just showing you how I made it. Enjoy this. Okay, we are back on Facebook. I'm going to go to my mikezdesign Facebook page here. I'm going to hit photos. I'm going to hit albums. And I think I'm going to, I know exactly what I'm going to do. It's not always a fly-by-night operation here, people. We're going to do this one here. Again, this is the episode 3 of how I did it. And this video is kind of cool because it's also going to show when I got my first Astro van. This says January 30th, 2018. Now, I don't know. I don't know if that's when I started it. So let's click on the first image here and I'll tell you guys the story. This says February 5th, 2018. So I don't know, but I I guess it was around January-ish, December 2017. I don't know. I was home in the winter of 2017 is what I believe. And I was there for my friend's daughter's wedding. He's got 3 kids, and I didn't make it to the boys' weddings. And I was there the day this girl was born, and it was kind of a big deal for her if I was at the wedding. So I went to the wedding, and while I was in town, this is my hometown at Seaside Park, I ran into this woman, Gina Condos, who had been following the page. And, I went to high school with her sisters. Gina was the oldest sister. I hadn't actually met her yet. And her and her husband, Alex, who used to also be a mayor of Seaside Park, were building a custom home right across the street from the police station, actually. And they had a project for me. They needed an island top, and so we agreed on terms. And by the way, I will tell you right now, they got this for about a third of what it should have cost when you look at how everything worked out. And I'm making them a maple top. So this is me selecting the maple. This is, I believe, 10 or 12 quarter. In the end, I ended up milling it to, I believe it was 2¼ inches thick. So this is me selecting the lumber at Bonhoff Lumber. Those are the boards I'm taking home. That's the old pickup. Some of you guys might remember this truck. I sometimes miss it. It was a love-hate relationship. V8 318, 67 Dodge fleet side, swept side they call this model truck. Well, there you go. It's 2½ inches thick right there. So that would be 8, 10, that's 12 quarter. These boards are over 9 feet long. And so there it is. Here's the milling process. Step 1 is straight lining these boards. Also, I decided to straight line it on the with the Festool rail system. It's a little bit safer to do it that way than trying to run that on the table saw. Plus, they're so long. Looks like everything is straight lined. Next step, you see I'm setting up the joiner with the outfeed table so I can face join. This is my working sketch of what the parameters were. It was going to be about 5 feet depth on the ends, but I had a curve on this side here, kind of a bump out. And that was originally where the sink was going to be approximately. And what do we got here for length? 104 inches long, about 62 to 63 inches wide, and yeah, 2¼ inches thick. I said up to 2 inches, but I'm pretty certain I had it over 2 inches thick. Maybe I'm remembering that incorrectly. So these were ideas. I was thinking about putting splines in here. In the end, I did a different way. These were overall sketches because at the time they didn't have the cabinet plan done. And it was interesting because when I got there, they weren't even ready for me to get there with. There was a lot of stuff that didn't go right with this project. So you could see here, this is the kitchen. I guess this is probably a photograph they sent me. And the floor is in, obviously the cabinets aren't in. This island is going between these two vertical posts. This was something I sketched up for them. This was my own idea. You'll see here I have supports drawn on, right? In the end, they didn't even put any, and I wish they would because it's designed to be supported. There was more of a cantilever overhang than I ended up with. I think I'm talking to them about chamfering the top edge of it there. Those were all design concepts. Now, this has been face joined, and you can see here I have pencil lines on it, which means I'm going to run it through the planer. And that's another pass. So you see how you can see the lines here, but you can't see it there. So putting pencil lines on the board are going to tell you how the board is moved or how it's shaped and tells you when you've got it to your final. So that's what I was doing. I was face joining. And now I'm edge joining it because the next step is to run it through the bandsaw for resawing. And this is where I ran into a problem with the machine. I ended up buying a new blade. Blades for this machine, resaw blades that are carbide tip. They only have about 2 teeth per inch, 2 to 3 teeth per inch, because that's mainly what I do with this. I was fighting with this machine for years after I bought it, and this was the project where I discovered the whole table was out of alignment. So I had to recalibrate the entire machine. in the end. And I did fix it. But at this point, I didn't know what the problem was. So here I am resawing. The blade would walk on me. It wouldn't cut a straight line. So I did solve that problem eventually. So you guys kind of understand what resawing is about. What again, you face join the opposite side, you edge the bottom, so it's 90 degrees on the fence. You run it through, and you cut away all this material. If you were going to try to plane this, it would take forever to get the two sides parallel to one another. So you can see how much time you're saving, because this could be 1/4 of an inch thick over here. And it's, hard maple. So this is very rough on the tools. So this is all a milling process. It looks like here, everything's been face joined. So in the end, there you go. We're looking at 2 1/8. It's pretty good. I'm laying out the pattern that I want to do here. And then I had these butterfly mortises. In the end, what we did was we did a mix of, you'll see. Basically, I used all of these. That's Macassar ebony. That is walnut. That is African mahogany. That's Honduran mahogany. That's genuine mahogany. That's the good stuff. That's the real stuff. The African mahogany isn't really mahogany. It just looks that way. I got purple heart here, and then these were experimental, but they worked out great. They look like little Italian candies, which worked out great for them. They loved it. I'm tuning up here. Again, these boards are over 9 feet long as I'm working them. I probably cut these down to about 8.5 feet or so, 9 feet. And I remember what's going on here. When I was putting these together, there was just the slightest gap in the center. So I'm just shaving off the ends so that they'd be tight all the way down the line. And what I ended up doing was, I believe I did 3 glue ups. We'll find out here in a moment. Yeah, 1, 2, 3 glue ups. There they are. Now, this would be too wide to get in the van. So the idea was I needed a van. So I started getting online, and I knew I wanted an Astro van. I went and looked at one to make sure I could fit behind the seats to the back doors 8 feet, like a 4x8 sheet of plywood, which I could. But for this project, I had to remove the front seat and stack these all the way across the passenger side of the van. That's me testing it for size. It's going to work out great. We're at 62 1/8 wide, and it's 102 inches long right there. So those parameters meet what they want. They're much larger, actually, so I can trim it down. I'm doing a Dutchman patch here. I did that on purpose. I wanted to see it on purpose. I want people to notice that patch in the wood because it denotes craftsmanship. Fixing that. There's the van. So I just bought the van. Didn't know anything about Astrovans. My uncle had bought the first Astrovan, not the very first one off the line, but in 1985, he bought the first gen Astrovan. They were stubby, though. They didn't have the length that these do. Now they're all the same length, but this was it. And you'll see here, I'll probably show what I do with this thing. This was a cool van. I liked that it was a passenger. This was a '05, which is the end of it. That's the last year, 3rd generation cargo. So it does have the 16-inch wheels, 4-wheel disc brakes, but it was only 2-wheel drive. You can see how much lift there is in the rear end. These cargos had a little bit of a better spring on them. They're designed for work. And as you can see, I can get a 4x8 sheet of plywood in there, and that was a big deal for me, knowing I could do that. And here I've removed the front passenger seat. And testing, because the idea here is I have to drive this from California to New Jersey. And right here, it's February 6th is the date here. And I needed to be there by Valentine's Day is what they wanted. So right here, I'm making a cleat system for the van because I had to build a deck to sleep on. And I mortised away a bunch of material to fit the ribbing here. Wow, I guess I grazed my finger with the joiner blade right there. So this happens from time to time. I put a little super glue on it to stop the bleeding. So this was a deck I made. I put a big beam here and plywood on the top, and in the end, I got some foam, which I'm still using the same foam I bought for this van. This van eventually was stolen and then recovered. And so the Fernie blankets are between all of the pieces. I didn't want to damage them, and I've got the deck in place now. This is New Jersey, so I've already driven across the country here, and this is, I believe this is Fifth Ave. I could be mistaken. I'm pretty certain this is Fifth Ave, and the police station would be over here. This is the house, and I slept in this when I got to town. I slept in the van in front of my buddy John's bait and tackle shop, which is 2 blocks over in this direction, and it was 12 degrees Fahrenheit, which was cold, but I did it. February in New Jersey. So there's Alex and his buddy, and we are laying this out on the floor, and I'm laying out the pattern for the butterfly mortises. Turns out some wrenches were thrown into the mix here. The sink got moved, which was a bit of a problem for me. They put some paper down on the floor, and but they were not ready. The cabinets were not in place. These are all my tools. So I had to kill time. This kind of hurt me on this trip. I spent a lot more money. Although Alex was cool, he found me an apartment to stay in for free over in Ortley, which was super cool. Again, as I'm laying out the pattern here of how I'm going to lay out the butterfly mortises. And the idea here, this is one piece. There's a center piece. It's the end piece. So 1, 2, 3 parts. And each of these have butterflies inside of them. And then I was nervous about too many butterflies. So on the seams that attach, there's 2 seams that attach the 3 parts. In the end, I put butterfly out on the edges. It looks really cool and it does a perfect job. I didn't want to flood the field with way too many butterflies. And this is the process. There are videos on this. I know that on my Instagram, if you are sleuthers, and you can get back to February of 2018 on my mikezdesign Instagram page, you're going to see a lot more photos on this project there. I was posting daily on what I was doing, and I'm pretty certain that there is a video. It might be here on YouTube, but I'm pretty certain there's a video there of me actually using the router and creating the mortise for the butterfly mortises. And if you don't remember, I make these all individually, and then I trace them individually because this butterfly mortise is not going to fit in the same hole that this butterfly mortise fits in. So that's the only way to make them look like they're done by hand, to do them by hand. That's the best way to do it. These are all my Japanese chisels. I still have the hammer. I have this wide one. I think that's the same one I still have. But this chisel here got stolen with my tools when the van got stolen. It was unfortunate. There is the butterfly mortise in place. All the tools I'm using. So these are 2 right here. These 2 right here are butterfly mortises. People have said, oh, there's a bunch of them on eBay, a set of them for $700. They're not butterfly mortises. Notice the flare here. Let's see if we can zoom in on that for you. I want you guys to see this because you might stumble upon it and have no use for it. See this? This shape kind of matches over here. You see that? Now, this chisel was what I used to make the size of my butterfly mortises. They're all at least that wide. And the idea is if you make your butterflies in the right size, you could do one strike with this chisel on this top edge here instead of moving the chisel and striking it again. That's a time saver. This one here is for this line, right? Now this one I do have to move over a little bit because that line is longer than the width of this chisel. But in a perfect world, you get a chisel that is at least that long. A little bit longer is okay on this one. And then a chisel this width here for this one. So it's one strike here, one strike here. Grab this chisel, one strike here, 4 strikes. And now you're ready to use the straight bit in your trim router to remove the material. And then you trim the parts and it's all good to go. There's the trim router. You guys have seen that already. Let's back this out. I'm doing all this on the floor, obviously. You can see that. That's me, you know. Look at that stud, man. Come on. I am not that full of myself. Okay. Spanakopita. I came here. I drove all the way across the country for the Spanakopita. but this was the only time she made it for me, so I feel like I got gypped. Okay. Got the butterfly mortises in place. You guys see what's happening here. There's the Dutchman patch. There's the butterflies. They brought me these horses, and this is me gluing up the parts now. The blue tape is there so that when I do the glue up and the glue squeezes out, I can wipe it down with water and pull the glue, and I'm not getting a bunch of glue on the maple. And I misspoke a little while ago. It's not hard maple, it was soft maple. It just looked really white in those pictures. Soft maple will be a little yellower when you start applying finish, and hard maple is harder, and it's more white with less color variation in it. So soft maple is a little bit easier on your machines when you are doing that. So I brought all my clamps. These are all my clamps. And here I'm putting the butterfly mortises on the end grain here. And the four, there's one here, and then there's corresponding ones on the other side, and they hold, with the glue, the three parts together nicely. Keep in mind, we have over 2 inches of height here, so the glue surface between each one of these parts is massive. And here, I've taken a rip that I cut off, and I'm using it to create a curve. It's not like you just clamp down and draw a line and cut it. I do a bunch of measurements from this end over here. I measure across this board probably in 8 to 10 inch increments, and then I lay this curve on and I clamp it, and then I do measurements from this edge out to the line, and whoopsie, and I make sure that this curve is symmetrical on both sides. So if I measure from over here to here and it's 60 inches at 10 inches in from the edge, I'm going to make sure it's doing that on that end, right? And at 20 inches in, if that's 60 3/4, I make sure that it's 60 3/4 here. And if this is, 61 inches from here back, I make sure that over here, 60, you understand what I'm saying? So that curve is perfectly symmetrical. That's it laying out. That's the curved stick right there. Curve has been cut. I cut that with a circular saw. If you set your blade exactly just beyond the thickness, you can do a sweeping curve like that with a circular saw. It's nice too because it's perfectly 90 degrees and it's a pretty clean cut. A lot better job than doing it with people call it a jigsaw or a saber saw. Doing it with a circular saw is going to give you a better finish. A lot less work to do with the belt sander, tuning that up afterwards. So this is the new layout, which was a problem for me because they put the sink here. Now, originally the sink was supposed to be over here. And when I did my glue ups, I used biscuits, which I didn't really need to do, but I did. And I knew I had biscuits here. So I knew that when I did the sink cutout, there was a possibility we would see, and I did, and I had to deal with that, and you'll see that coming up here. This is doing the cutout for the sink. Just a nice thing to do. You should drill out the 4 corners and then, run your jigsaw. Now, usually what I do is I drill out the corners. I think I use this, we'll see here. Yeah, so I'm using the track saw here. I'm plunging in. I'm doing straight cuts, and then I finish it off with a jigsaw. And you see what I did here. This is a pretty smart idea. You drill your holes. This is the underside. You drill your holes, and you do your straight plunge cuts with the circular saw. Then you come underneath here, and you put a couple cleats that you screw to the surface, right? This is the part that's going to come out. Now you can clean up your corner cuts with the jigsaw, and this piece stays here. It doesn't just fall out on you. That's the smart pro way to do it there, people. If you're not doing this, when you get to your last cut, it's going to fall sloppy. It could fall all the way through, do damage to something. It could also bind your saw up, and if it does that, you run the risk of screwing the cut up. And on this one, it had to be perfect because this was going to be an undermount sink. Another thing that I wasn't told until I got there. So there were so many wrenches. I really did not charge enough money for this. They really got a good deal on this. This inside cut and these corners, I had to get that as perfect as I could with the tools that I brought with me because it was an undermount sink. What that means is you're going to see this. And that is not what I signed up for. So that was a lot of extra stress that I didn't need. Not to mention at the time, the client was losing his mind and lashing out. He really we had a real issue towards the end. I had to walk away from this, but yeah, even placing this logo, this is not where I wanted to put it, but he was like, "That's where I want it." It was a very tough situation to deal with, but in the end, it all worked out great. And here is where there was you could see there was a hole here because that's where I had put a biscuit. There's a seam here that joins this piece to this piece. And so I'm plugging it with a contrasting wood on purpose so you would see it. It's just what I had to do there. This is a trim cutter. It's a hand tool that you can cut moldings with by hand instead of using a saw. That does a pretty good job. Time saver. So here you see, there's the biscuit, and I'm just cramming this peg in there. You can see it up here at the top. Even this hole, like, it was just what I went through with this guy was so crazy because he's like, "Oh, you put it too close," and he totally flipped out on me over it. Got me emotional. I was like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And now it works perfect. There's no problems. There was no reason to be losing his mind. it was a crazy time. But this is not accurate to color. I mean, it is accurate what it looked like at that moment, but I knew that it was going to reach enough. This is also not the finish I wanted to use. So the client did his research and he selected a product. My job, my commitment was to get one coat of finish on it, and he was going to take over from there, which he did. But there was a lot of stress on this project. Again, I shouldn't have really taken this job on, but you guys got to see what I went through, man. I made all these parts in California. I bought a van. You know, I had to borrow money to buy the van, and then I had to sell my truck when I got back, the old Dodge, and I was able to pay my buddy off right away. That lent me the money to buy the van, and then the van got stolen. It was just crazy. But all this color variation that's beautiful, really, kind of goes away because the finish that he chose tends to yellow the product, which is fine. A lot of people like it. And you can see it's yellowing already here in this photo. So there's the part. I sealed the top and the bottom. And I don't remember if we placed it before I left. So this is later now. This is 2020. 2 years later, I went back. So I guess I left at this point. And again, and I don't mean to be speaking out of turn here. I'm not trying to talk any smack. It's just that the client, he was really stressed out, man. And he wasn't dealing with the stress well. And especially when it came to me. And I don't know why, but it was a problem. And at this point, I had to walk away. And I probably should have stuck around and said, you know, now you got to give me more money. But I just maybe that was the plan. I don't know. I hope nobody gets upset by what I'm saying right now, but that's the truth. That's what went on. Everybody knows me, was talking to me at the time when I was working on it. They understand the stress that was a huge part of this project. I walked away at this point, but I made my commitment good. This is 2 years later. I got a big apology from him. It was awesome. And I really love the guy. He is a great human being. And this is us again. This is September of 2020. So it's really, about 2.5 years later. I'm back in town. I'd been in town before that. I went home that summer of 2018, 2019, 2020, and I believe 2021. It was great. I was living in the van each time. Little couch surfing and staying with friends and surfing with my buddies. It was a great, 4 years or so of going home. I wish I could do it every year. I got a little burnt out after a while, but this is us having a coffee and talking about it. And that's it, finished. I kind of had to go back. I had to get finished pictures because none of these cabinets were there, right? They installed this and it worked out great. You could see under sink mount here. They still haven't trimmed this, but they don't really care to at this point because everybody who comes in the house signs the post. I think it's kind of nice. Look at the cantilever here. This is way more than I agreed to. And in the end, they did the counterlever here instead of doing a bookshelf here, which is nice because as you can see, there's 2 stools. So you could sit 6 people around this, seated around this top. It's about 8 feet long in the end, a little more than 8 feet, I believe. It's about 63 inches wide, I believe, 62 inches wide. And again, it's about 2 1/8 inches thick. Just some finished shots of this here for you. Trying to keep this quick. You see the placement of the sink here. This is dead center. When the water falls, it worked out perfect. There's nothing to be upset about. And you know what's nice is that Gina, the wife here, she's always taking pictures here, and people are always around this. And this is the front door is over here to the house. When you walk in, this is the first thing that you see. It's the center hub of the home, and it's just so nice to see this regularly in their photographs. I love these people. I wish I'd talk to them more often. Looks great. This is the curve, and again, they never put any brackets under this, which makes me nervous. If you guys are watching this, I still think you should put some brackets underneath this. It is so close to these posts. If you did trim the posts, you could put a little, like a thick metal steel L bracket right on the post and underneath this top. And then you wouldn't have to put brackets underneath of it. And that would be a good way to, just as a safety, secure it. Again, I'm kind of showing off. I'm very pleased with this. This was a tremendous amount of work. Again, only one like it on the planet. There's not another solid maple, 2 1/8 inches thick, that massive, as an island top out there. It looks like this one. I did this, right? All these different butterfly mortises. These colored ones really pop. There's one here. There's one on the end here. They love it. I even made this one proud. I gave him an option. So I left one of them kind of proud so you can feel it. There's a little texture there. And you can see now the color is way more uniform. Again, 2.5 years later, we'll go back. And you can see how this color kind of unified itself. A lot of that is the wood itself is going to richen over time anyhow. This gets a lot of light, this room, and it also has a lot to do with the product that he's. And don't ask me, I don't remember what the finish was. It was some high-end countertop finish. And you see the light hitting this, and it's just fire, man. Just fire grain. That's why I selected that part. And that's it. That's the end of this. Let's get to a photo of it finished. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you enjoy this series. I'm going to keep doing these. It's just something that I feel like I need to do it for you guys. Because a lot of what you see me doing on the channel these days is not, it's not all fine furniture. It's just a lot of it's me trying to make basic stuff cool. Have a great day. Be kind to one another. I'll catch you all in the next one.